Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we have a special treat. We do have Matt, Ryan, and Ari from Big Time here for an interview just to discuss the game. There's a lot of questions that I do have about the game. It's obviously one of the most hyped crypto projects in the works at the moment. So a big shout out to these three for taking the time for joining us for this one. What we're pretty much going to try and cover in this video, I will leave timestamps, will be just the vision and the origin story of Big Time. Then we're going to try and dig deeper into the gameplay aspects of it, and a little bit into the play to earn and NFT side of the game. So first off, Ari, if you could give us a basic summary of how Big Time actually got started and what the vision behind the game is.
Sure, and thanks for having us here, Kevin. So we started thinking about Big Time as we were launching Decentraland with Thor. Basically, we saw that there was an opportunity to bring blockchain-based gaming to a much wider audience, which meant bringing down all the barriers to entry, such as the idea that players needed to download a wallet and install it, be the custodian of their assets, and have crypto already as a way to participate. So we started thinking about a company that could make NFTs a mainstay of the gaming industry, which meant creating a platform that would make crypto-based virtual goods very accessible, both for players and for game developers, and making the asset minting, the custody of the NFTs, the trading, and the reuse within games a lot easier to use than what's available today in the market. So for us to get started, we decided we had to eat our own dog food, and we chose to create the first title called Big Time, which is an action RPG where players can battle across history to save the universe from the company that owns time. So it's really an opportunity for gamers to have a lot of fun and to collect fascinating artifacts from throughout time and space. The idea with this game is first to create a showcase of what a really high quality blockchain game could be as a way to inspire other game studios to really have the drive to invest their time and money on creating blockchain games, and hopefully so that we can ultimately help other game studios to do something similar to what we're doing.
Definitely. And when did you start the process for Big Time?
So it was about a year and a half ago, maybe a little earlier. We're still working on Decentraland, and we were in the process of launching the virtual world and fully decentralizing it, meaning we were creating a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, so that the project will continue moving forward, but driven by its community. So at that time, I thought, what would I do next? I mean, I remain still as an advisor to Decentraland, but I still thought that there were a lot of things to be done in the blockchain gaming space.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
about a year and a half, a little over.
Yeah, and that is a short time frame for building a game. When you take a look at like the general games that get built for especially PC and console. And how many on the team at the moment working on the game?
So we are 40 people total in the team. There are about 30 of these that are working strictly on the game.
Yeah, nice. And the scheduled release now, I believe it's Q1 2022. Is that still the slated release date?
Yeah, so we're hoping to get the game in early access at the beginning of next year. We
Yeah.
haven't completely determined an exact date. That's hard to estimate, but we're pretty confident that at the beginning of next year, we're gonna have it ready for those people that have bought the early access passes.
Yep. So the gold passes, then the silver passes, then the emerald passes will get in. Will there be any sort of beta testing before that for players to test, like a closed beta test where you just stress test everything and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we're actually close to start uh, private testing
Yep.
with about 100 people at a time, but it's going to be done behind closed doors.
Yep. Yep, fair enough. And are you gonna leak some gameplay once that starts? Because I know we've started seeing some, some of the characters running through and stuff like that. But I think everyone's keen to see a bit more gameplay. I know I am personally.
No, totally. First, we are working actually on a teaser.
Yep.
We should be able to release that uh, in a few weeks. And of course, throughout Q4, the fourth quarter of the year, we're going to be releasing more gameplay footage.
Beautiful. And obviously you've taken the approach with the NFTs in this game where NFTs is secondary to the gameplay. That you've only got the cosmetic NFTs. Is that correct?
Yes, so there are many ways to think about this decision. First, we wanted to build a game that we would play ourselves, not for the token economics, but rather because it's really a fun game. Most people in our team, at least everyone in the management, comes from the gaming space, from studios such as Epic, like Matt, or EA, or Zynga, like Thor, my co-founder, Riot, Blizzard, and so on. So this is a team of people that has created a lot of very successful games that have reached tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, and we are trying to repeat that. And we think that for a game to be fun, it has to be fun in its own right. It's not about like finding tokens or assets. So we see the blockchain side of things more as a feature, not as the core gameplay, if that makes sense.
Definitely, because I think personally at the moment when I try and tell people about crypto games and show them some stuff, at the moment we're in this weird phase of games in the crypto space where any game that you can play now looks pretty average, and it's all driven around like trying to earn money. And all the
Hmm.
games that are looking good don't have any gameplay yet. So you're in this loop of you've like because it's so fresh and like most gaming companies that are trying to build bigger scale games have only been doing it for a year and a half or so. So they're still in development. You've got bad games to show or no games to show at the moment. It's a very interesting space, and I think that the idea of doing NFTs as cosmetics is a really good and like entry level for crypto games to get people into the space because they're just playing a game essentially with big time. And then, it's like in World of Warcraft where I used to run repeat dungeons over and over and over just to get a transmog for a weapon. It's that sort of thing, except you can just sell it. So I feel like it's a nice breaking barriers into crypto space to general gamers with a really solid gameplay from the concept that I can see. So I really like the angle that you guys are going on, making the game first and NFTs second.
Totally. And let me add, from a community building standpoint, it's very limiting if all the players need to buy assets, which sometimes are worth a lot of money in order to participate. So we're taking the free to play playbook in the sense that we want everyone to be able to come in and find their friends and have fun very quickly without any sort of investment. And if they like the game, maybe they can then think about, I don't know, upgrading their wearables or even spending money. It's not a necessary condition to access the game, and this is in stark contrast, as you say, to a lot of the existing blockchain games.
And extending on that, just so I got the info, you're not going to have to link a wallet to the game to play. You're just going to be able to play it like a normal game. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, that goes. So let me explain the vault system. You can think of it as the Coinbase of NFTs, or a turnkey solution for
Yep.
introducing NFTs inside of games. Basically, we are providing hosted wallets so that the players don't have to think or even know that there is blockchain underneath. That allows us to have their assets in custody so they don't have to think about where's their private key, how are they storing it, or even worry about losing all the assets, which is an issue that I've encountered in the past with people losing their land and then blaming the developer.
Yep.
And the reality is that when you think about the the broader gaming market, there are 2-3 billion people. Probably 95 or more percent of them doesn't know what a crypto wallet is. So we want to be very inclusive and be able to create an experience for all of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Then again, when you're going to transfer an item, give it away to a friend or trade it, again, you don't need a wallet. You just basically it's like an inventory system or a marketplace that you log in with your game account, not with a MetaMask or any of that.
So the whole market will operate through not needing a wallet, or if you want to go ahead and sell and
Yeah.
buy things, you'll need to link it, or
No, you won't need a wallet for the marketplace either. And the
really?
good thing is that, yeah, the good thing also is that you're not going to need to have crypto necessarily. You can deposit crypto, but you can also fund your account with debit, credit, even your bank account in over 80 countries.
Ah, okay. So it's literally like I just go onto the marketplace if I want to buy something, I use my credit card. How about if I'm selling something and I want to get the revenue from a sale?
Yeah, then you can withdraw it to your bank account, for example, or debit card, depending on the country, or
Yep.
even you can use some form of stable coin to withdraw the value.
Wow, that's interesting. I thought when you got into the market you were gonna have to link, but that's actually really interesting. That's really simple. So you essentially don't even know you're playing a crypto game. You're just like playing a game that you're just selling stuff without
Yeah,
even having to worry about a wallet.
to give you some background into how we came up with this decision, at the beginning we had a bit of a hybrid model where some people were going to use a wallet and some others would not. But then we realized that even our own team was struggling with MetaMask, and I had to explain to a bunch of people who are developers and are very tech savvy how this works, just because they were not ready. So then we realized that we had to remove all sorts of friction from this experience, including the marketplace.
Nice. I really like that. That's one step further than I thought it was going to be. So that's actually really exciting, and that's something I think you're the only one that I've heard of actually doing that system. So that's really interesting. I can't wait to see the marketplace in action. Now, as for the marketplace, obviously we have the gold passes, the silver passes, and the emerald passes that people can buy, but that's on secondhand markets type thing. Are you going to do any drops before the game for cosmetics and stuff like that? We've seen a couple, like the frame, like the pictures and stuff like that. Is there going to be any in-game cosmetics dropped before the launch?
So I can't anticipate a lot, but once we have our marketplace, we're going to be able to start uh, like being able to distribute items that are going to be used within the game. One of them that I can talk about is the time machines. The time machines are your personal pocket universe, or our version of virtual real estate that players are going to use to decorate with all the objects that they encounter across the dungeons, and they're going to be able to invite their friends or their guild. And they're also these items, the time machines are going to have a role in the economics of the game, but we can talk about that like once we announce it publicly.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So sort of like a land when you compare it to other games, bit like a land sort of sale type thing. Nice.
Exactly, which is a concept like land on the blockchain that we pioneered at Decentraland and that resonated very well. And we have some unique learnings from that experience, and we've modified what the land represents within the game in such a way that uh, it will never have a negative impact on the game, on the player experience.
Yep. Yep. And like the rest of your model for the game, it's not going to give you competitive advantages in the game. It's there purely as more of a fun factor inside the game.
Exactly.
Yep, beautiful. All right, I think we might jump into a bit of the gameplay. So I think Matt, you're going to be the man for this one. I just
good.
I just wanted to first of all, like for players jumping into the game, I just wanted to get a feel of what's going to happen when you first get into the game. Is it going to be? I envision something like World of Warcraft where you have a character selection, like you'll be able to choose which character you want to play as. You've got the four available classes now that you have announced all the four classes. And then what's the sort of process of that? Like, is there customization or anything like that involved in the getting started process?
Yeah, you're for the most part you're bang on. There'll be a character selection screen where you choose one of the four sort of main branches that we're shipping with anyway. More than likely we'll be adding characters as we go, but at least at launch we'll have the four. And then once you've picked which branch you want to be, say you want to be the fixer, then you could do some customization to your character on top of that. Things like choosing your gender, modifying the visual appearance of your character. And then once you have your character, everything picked out the way that you want, you jump into the game, kind of like you would see in something like World of Warcraft, where you're dropped in sort of a we call it the Fatui zone, first time user experience, which is like a little bit of a hand-holdy area that kind of guides you through the game and gives you a little bit of a chance to learn the mechanics and the controls and whatnot, and then lets you go on your way and go start completing quests and earning experience, getting better gear, looting NFTs, that sort of thing. It's sort of a normal RPG or ARPG progression curve from there.
Yep. And with that, you're obviously, when we got the selection screen, you select your class as such. You'll be able to play as each individual class. They just level individually. Is that correct?
Yeah. So trying to think how much of this we've announced, but suffice to say, you'll be able to choose your class at the start, but we have some pretty interesting mechanics that we're testing right now that let you be a little bit more fluid in what class that you play. Make a little bit more changes and more interesting choices as you go along. That's something you wouldn't typically see at least I've not seen in an ARPG yet. So
beautiful.
Should be interesting, but we're still kind of working out all the details there.
Yep, definitely. And when you say you go into the starter zone, to learn mechanics and basics and stuff like that. Now, my understanding is the game is heavily instanced. You go through the portals, you go to different time zones, and you're effectively battling through dungeons. Now, that starter zone is like, I'm envisioning big World of Warcraft players, so this is where I get all my analogies. But sitting like sort of Orgrimmar or Stormwind. Are there going to be other like open areas to cruise around in as well? Or is it more just like you got your hometown and then it's all sort of instanced based?
It'll be a mix, right? I think most of the kind of quote unquote hardcore fighting will be in instances with you and your party of like six other friends, or 5 other friends, 6 total. But we will obviously have the big social areas like Stormwind and whatnot, but we plan to have some sort of in-between zones as well, where maybe there'll be a little bit of fighting, but it's not fully instanced. It's going to be, you'll be in there with other random people that just happen to be running around in that zone. There might even be some creatures to fight, but not to the scale and to the danger level that you'd see in one of the instance dungeons. The fact that the dungeon is instance gives us a lot more freedom to like do wild things with the environment and have tons and tons of enemies coming at you and all that sort of stuff without having to worry about like the level 1 guy that's running through the zone that's going to get stomped by your hordes of dudes that you're fighting or whatever. But we technically, like on our technology stack, lets us kind of mix and match however we want. So I would expect to see kind of a range of purely social zone with lots and lots of people in it and no combat, kind of an intermediate zone with lots of people, but maybe not as many as you'd see in the big social zone, and then the instance zones, which are just your party.
Yep. And with the instance zones, obviously, I think it's up to 6 members of the party in those teams. Now, are you going to have some sort of group finder type system where you can queue randomly by yourself and get put into a group? Or are you going to have to preform a group?
Preforming a group is always going to be
better,
preferred just because you play with your friends. But we do plan on having sort of like pickup group or automatic group selection stuff going as well. So if you're just by yourself, you kind of have 2 options. You can jump in and get selected with a group randomly, or you could play with AI companions is something that we're looking at doing later on. So,
nice.
You'd be playing by yourself with, some people in your party that are AI controlled, just kind of help you fill out your team roster.
Yep.
And probably that'll be that, like the AI companions may or may not make it for our very first early access launch. It depends on how things go, but
yeah,
that's what we
that's actually an interesting concept, because like I said, I'm used to WoW, like none of that in there. But and with the progression through dungeons, is you're obviously going to level up your characters, and like we spoke about before, the NFTs are cosmetics. So when you clear through a dungeon and you defeat the boss at the end, get the loot, you're going to have a small chance at NFT drops, but also regular weapon and gear drops, which are off chain, which are in-game items that you're going to, is it going to be like the general progression of level up, you get into harder dungeons to get better loot, to level up more to get better loot, and then you keep going? Is that the general progression of the game?
Yeah, for the most part, that's exactly right. There's kind of the more traditional in-game items that you'd see in World of Warcraft or Diablo or Path of Exile or anything like that, that have a bit of a random element to them. So every time something drops, the stats are rolled. So you're picking up items that are unique, essentially. You might get really good rolls on this thing, that are better than anyone's ever seen before, but it's not an NFT. It's just like a really good in-game item. And that's kind of the division we've drawn here between what you can buy and what you have to earn. So you can buy stuff that looks really, really cool, but it doesn't make you powerful, right? It just looks cool. And then the stuff that's going to actually affect your stats and make your character really powerful, you have to play and earn and loot by putting time into the game, so that you don't have this situation where somebody comes along with daddy's credit card and then suddenly is the best player in the game or whatever.
That's actually really good. And with those dungeons, is it going to be the case that like dungeons scale to your level, or will it be like certain time, like, because obviously we're traveling through time, will it be like certain time zones are like low level instances and then others are, sort of moving in towards the end game?
It'll be a bit of both. So we already have systems built and that we're testing. And by the way, we play test at least once a day. So
Yep.
It's not like the game isn't playable yet. We're in there and playing all the time and just iterating and adding stuff. So as we're doing that, we're testing things like dynamic difficulty. When you jump into an instance right now, it looks at how many people are in your party. It looks at the level of everybody in the party and adjusts how many guys spawn, what level the guys that spawn are, how much health they have, that kind of thing. Because really, even though we're going to have dungeons that are lower level than others, sort of like the newbie zone is generally going to have easier guys than the non-newbie zone. I think it's important from a gameplay standpoint to kind of be changing this stuff on the fly so that everybody has a good experience, because you'll get, you might get 10 players that are all level 5, and then you get another group of 10 players that are all level 5, and they just happen to be really good and they've played with each other before, and they have all their stuff, their strategies down, and they can just walk through an instance super fast without any problem at all. We still want those people to have fun, as well as the people that are brand new to the game or maybe just not as coordinated. So there's kind of a lot of stuff going on behind the curtain in terms of keeping pace fun and keeping the game interesting without kind of changing anything too drastically.
Yep. And with obviously if you have a leveling up system, you're obviously going to run into the issue of carrying people. So you get a guy who's max level carrying a level 1 player. This is a bit more niche, and I don't know if you can say, but are you thinking about mechanics to sort of like curb the amount of experience that level 1 player can get if it's going into a dungeon with 5 other max level players?
Yes. We haven't announced exactly how those mechanics are going to work yet, but that is definitely something we're going to do. There will be sort of a leveling of the playing field process that happens, so that, again, what we're trying to be is as inclusive as possible. Really what we would like at the end of the day is for a level, max level character to be able to jump in and play with his friend that just picked the game up and still have a good time.
Yeah.
And both parties have a good time. Shouldn't be super easy, shouldn't be super hard. So there's going to be kind of a process that runs and makes things a bit more equalized and gives people of disparate levels a chance to experience the game together.
Yep, beautiful. And how long do you envision like a dungeon run taking? Like when you've sort of mapped out your vision for it, what's the sort of time frame?
So right now we're trying to keep, I guess it's sort of depends on what you mean by dungeon run. We're trying to keep a single session of like, you're in the dungeon playing actively, having to pay attention and being in a dangerous situation around 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
That doesn't necessarily mean you'll be done with the dungeon in 20 minutes. That might just mean it's 20 minutes before you go back up to town and kind of like sell stuff and, buy potions or whatever, and then come back. So the dungeon will end up being a lot deeper, but split into multiple sessions. And we're trying to do that because we want to make sure the game doesn't turn into like a huge time commitment like some of these games do, where you have to, it's like, oh, if you don't have 5 hours of completely uninterrupted time, you can't win this dungeon. Like, we're trying to avoid that situation.
Yep. I like it.
Yeah.
Nice. And for end game, like, what do you envision the end game content being for the game? Is there like tougher, like, raids or something like that where, you're going to have to be geared up and leveled up to, achieve that challenge? You're going to try and have those instances where it's like, no, you really need to synergize and work incredibly hard with a good group of people to clear this stuff? Or what's the end game content going to sort of look like?
It's to be determined if we're going to try and do something like WoW raids, the much bigger 40-man raids. If we do, I wouldn't be surprised if we did eventually. I think the really beautiful thing about the storyline and the narrative that we have going in this game is it gives us lots and lots of freedom to explore stuff like that later on down the line, because it's, you know, time travel, alternate universes. We can literally like throw people in a dungeon that's in a completely different time, juxtaposed with different parts of lore from around the world that just, you know, whatever. We can kind of serve the gameplay needs that we have rather than having to worry about fitting everything into the story. So I imagine we'll do some more in-game content like that, but right now we're really focused on kind of like the core and middle loop of the game, because that's kind of the most important thing when you launch anyway.
Yep, definitely.
But I would expect there to be, you know, end game content is going to feel like end game content. It'll be much harder, require, you know, leveled up players and experienced players and stuff like that. But a lot of the details there are not worked out.
And then obviously that end game loop, what I like about your gearing system is randomized stats. I've always loved that in games where you get drops with randomized stats, because there's always that incentive to keep that gameplay loop happening, because there's always something that you could tune in better on your character and stuff like that to obtain that sort of thing. Now, in the sense of like actual combat itself, like we know action RPG, how many sorts of abilities are you seeing have like the characters having? Like how many buttons are you going to be pressing in a rotation and stuff like that?
I don't know that we have any fixed number of buttons that we're targeting, but it'd be something similar to what you're seeing in Path of Exile and Diablo. So
yep,
just, you know, the sort of the number keys 1 through 0, I would be what I would expect. And really, we think a lot of the most interesting parts of progression through any of these games are the abilities. So we're investing quite heavily in the abilities themselves and making sure there's lots of them and they feel varied from one another. So there's lots of cool new stuff that, you know, like as you level up, you'll be playing slightly differently because you unlock some new ability that works differently. It's not just stat upgrades one to the next. They all feel the same. It's like, oh, this is totally new. And we really like that. So we're trying to make sure there's a lot of that in the progression loop. And
then, and with that, extending on that, you'll have a lot of abilities. Does that mean you'll have like a pool of abilities to choose from, and then you customize your play style based on the abilities that you select? Or will it only be like you've got the set abilities and that's what you're playing with?
No, it'll be, this kind of goes in with the thing I didn't really talk about before, but there's going to be a skill tree like system, something like Diablo and all those games where you're putting, as you level up, you earn points and you can choose where to allocate those points, and that unlocks new abilities or, you know, opens a new branch of the tree. We're doing some more interesting stuff on top of that kind of evolves around what you were just talking about, where when you pick up a piece of loot, it's randomized. So that we're going to randomize aspects of the skill tree as well and make kind of build that lootable object into the skill tree. So you can kind of like go out and loot cool objects that attach to your skill tree and unlock cool new branches or new abilities in interesting ways. So that we're really excited about that, because I think it opens up lots of interesting replayability and, you know, keeps things fresh.
Definitely, and it just adds a lot more in community involvement in people, you know, like testing builds, and I thoroughly enjoy that side of things as well. Now with the other thing, because obviously we're talking about NFTs are like, you know, that big flex value. Do you guys have any intentions to put like, because I understand there's no PvP at launch, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. It's something we may add later on, but right now we're focused on PvE.
Yep. Do you plan on having any sort of leaderboards or some flex value, you know, like first time clearing a boss or anything like that? Because often in these games, it's all about the flex value.
I think we haven't talked about leaderboards exactly, but I think a lot of our motivation for flexing, or as we call it, peacocking, is those big social zones, right? Like we want to maximize kind of the throughput that we get from those zones and make sure everybody has reasons to go back there, so that there's always this kind of like common water cooler area where you see the guy walk by that's like trailing flames 40 stories high, and you're like, what, how do I get that thing? Like that's really
okay. And that's where you'll know like he's cleared that, got that drop. That's really cool. I like just when you say that, I compare it to, once again, my WoW analogy. In Cataclysm, when they had a staff that you could drop for druids, where it gave you like a fire cat version of that druid, and you could strut around in the in like Orgrimmar or Stormwind as your fire cat, and you know they've cleared that boss and they've got that staff, which was the low drop. So I love anything like that with the absolute flex value, which is awesome. But I think I've pried just about enough into you on the gaming side of things. But is there anything else you guys quickly want to run through before we go? Or you're happy?
No, we're happy. Just letting everyone know, like, you can join our Discord. You can follow us on Twitter. We're gonna be unveiling a lot about the game over there and through the blog. We're also going to have our next NFT launch on Binance NFT on the 4th of October, and definitely stay tuned for all the upcoming and exciting news.
Definitely. Thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate it.